Hello, everyone, and welcome to our podcast where we are here and excited to be with you today. Welcome to Mind of a Brother, where we are focusing on a mission. As brothers, we are dedicated to the field of mental health while maintaining authenticity, while reducing stigma and making a meaningful impact in the lives of others. As we recap our episode of last week, just want to remind you guys, if you missed it, go back, check it out. We have some gems in it. Think you guys would be interested and hope you get a lot out of it. But just for a quick recap, we talked about what it means to be a Black man. We talked about deconstructing toxic, and I do mean toxic masculinity. And we also talked about moving from surviving to thriving. So again, if you didn't catch it, go back, check it out, and hope you have like some other things that come to mind as you listen to these three brothers talk. Did I miss anything, guys? Anything that y'all want to add?
No, man, I'm good.
Awesome, awesome. Dr. Aqua, you feeling good today?
Yep, I'm 100% good. Just waiting to get deep down into this today.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I'm right there with you. We got some good things that we're discussing today. But before we talk about our talking points for today, we do have a special guest. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Dr. Rawls to give an introduction of who he is and why he's here.
Hey, I appreciate that. And thanks for having me here. I am very elated to be here and discuss some of these topics with you three. I'm Dr. Rawls. I'm CEO of Empowering Minds LLC, which is my own private practice. But 9 to 5, I work for the federal government doing domestic violence and sexual abuse. I've been in the mental health field for about 20 years. Um, I've served in the Army for about 24 years, active duty and reserves, native of Washington, D.C. I've been all around the world. I'm married, had kids, adults, and I just love supporting each other and promoting healthy relationships within the culture of mental health as it relates to African American men and women.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for being with us today. And thank you for all the work that you have done and all the work that you are continuing to do. I'm sure that it's received a lot of good got a lot of good words.
It's time for me to retire.
Well, you're a lot closer than some of us. All right, guys. So let's talk about these talking points. So we have three things that we're going to discuss today. Topic number one: father wounds and absenteeism. What are the psychological effects of growing up without a father? Next talking point: breaking cycles as fathers. What are the conscious parenting and emotional legacy things that we're going to get into? And then our last talking point: the inner child work for Black men. How can we heal childhood trauma and meet those unmet needs? And what are those unmet needs? So, guys, the floor is open. Let's go ahead and get started.
Yeah, I think let me start today's topic. This is one topic that I hold dearly to my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, it affects all race. But when we talk about father's wound and when a father is not there or the father is absent, what does that really mean? When a father is absent, whether physically or emotionally, guess what? It leaves a mark.
Mm-hmm.
It leaves a mark. And many children grow up today, also still wrestling with the feelings of rejection. We see that every day. Not just rejection, there's also that feeling of abandonment or even confusion about their identity. And this is what we see a lot in our society and in our environment. For boys, not having a father can create a huge gap in how they understand manhood. Because no one was there to be a role model to them. They had to learn by themselves to be men. Also, you can also see that also shows up on how they love. How they love. Because again, I'll use my parents, my dad as an example. My dad has been married for the past 53 years, one wife, one man. I grew up and they still do that up to date. My dad would not eat until my mom comes back from wherever she goes to. Both of them, we grew up seeing and observing both of them taking showers together.
Mm-hmm.
We see how I saw how my dad became, he's always been a provider in the family that I was raised.
Mm-hmm.
At a point in time, my dad was not religious, but he would encourage my mom and every one of us to go to church. So that
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with that. I grew up in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
And that has affected how I loved. You know, again, that is very important. And also the responsibility that we as men also have. Now, if you grew up not having a father being responsible for taking responsibility over what God has called him to take responsibility over, there's no way you can learn. Because again, we always say charity begins at home. As children, I grew up modeling what I saw my father do, but I improved on what I saw my father do in our home. So that is why I said this topic is so dear in my heart. For girls, it can shape how they trust and how they also find themselves, how they relate to others, or what they do in relationships. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll give an example. Like I took my time, like I was like, okay, let's see. Research shows that father's absence is linked to a high rise of anxiety in Black men.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It also shows that the due to the absence of fathers or fathers in the life of children or their male kids, they are we there? Are we there?
Yeah, yeah, we can hear you, but no, your camera
Yeah.
turned off.
Okay. Can you see it? Can you see me now? Oh Lord, is it better?
There you are. There you go. You're like a little shadow now, but you came back. You came back.
Okay. So we see, it affects everything. Causes not one of the major causes to depression and difficulties also in them having trust in people.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
trust is a very, very significant thing. Like, I grew up knowing that now when I see a man older than me, I must respect the person because he's older than me, because we were raised in that environment. So the trust is, for many men, trust is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very important. So I just wanted to start with that the absence of men in a young man's life, or in the life of a child, a male child, causes a lot of problem.
Yeah.
You said a lot. You actually touched probably on every point on every topic that is probably going to be discussed. But one thing I actually want to um piggyback, so to speak, on what you said. You identified the difference between role formation and
Mhm.
role confusion.
Yes.
So what you learned through watching your father is called role formation. That means
Yes.
he set up a particular style of how he parented and how he lived his life, and it formed within you. So when
Hmm.
you don't grow up with a father, it becomes role confusion because you
Yes.
have nobody to model. And we know that modeling and behavior modeling is one of the characteristics that we learn from. I think that we start picking it up from age 3 until we master it. I think by age 10 or 11, before uh, other external stimuli come into facts with friends and teachers and whatever you get. So that's an actual good thing. Uh, what I would like to add to the topic that you said was being able to regulate emotions. So I found that to be one of the biggest things when a father is not present in the home, is learning how to just act, just like
Mm-hmm.
knowing when to get angry, when not to get angry, when not to be petty, when not to when to understand that enough is enough, uh, without a good role model, and it doesn't have to be a strong role model, just a good role model to teach you
Mhm.
those facets, um, you become unstable in your emotions.
Hmm.
And so when you go out to do anything, you could go from 0 to 100 just like that because you have no as like you put on cars, no governor or no filter. You just do whatever. Also, I know we're talking about missing fathers. However, let me throw a stat in because I'm a big stat guy.
Okay.
So believe it or not, believe it or not, there was a study done in 2023, and I think there was a news station, I think it was ABC or NBC, talked about it. But 52 point maybe 52% or a little above 52% Black fathers are in the home.
Mm,
Go
okay.
go research that. Only 47 point something percent are not in the home. Or it says Black fathers or Black father figures are in the home.
Hmm.
Even though it's still an issue, 52% of Black fathers are raising Black children.
Mm, okay.
But society will have you think that we are not.
Yeah.
It's almost the same narrative that they say that more people of color are on welfare
Hmm.
until
Mm,
the 2010 and 2020 census came out and debunked that myth.
right.
So we have to be mindful of information, although this is still important to make sure that Black men are being fathered and that we're being socially responsible.
Hmm.
But we have to also acknowledge and applaud that there are 52% or a little over 52% of Black fathers in the home.
Yeah. I mean, and I'll just say, like, hearing 52%, like, I think like we've all been programmed to think that that number would be lower. And I think that's because of, what society tells us, what's portrayed like on TV, other forms of entertainment. And yeah, so like that's surprising to me. What do you guys think?
So I
It's the
like to
highest since 1980, since the 80s. It's the highest since the 80s.
so I like to throw excuse me, I like to throw a little bit of a caveat in there, right? And I speak from a place of this because I'm one who grew up without a father, right?
Hmm.
Not because I didn't know who my dad was or that I don't know where he is. I know exactly where he is. I know exactly what he's doing. I mean, should me and the man share the same name, you know? And so I can say not just from my personal experience, but just from working with men, and just living life, I would be curious to know how much of that number is associated with men or Black men who have had a family with a different person. Because there's a lot of times where, and this really speaks to the father wound that a lot of people grow up with, me included. I'll be transparent
Hmm.
to say that
Yep.
that I can confidently say my father, my biological father, did what he was supposed to do, right? He just did
Hmm.
me. I've watched him be a father to other people, to
Hmm.
my siblings, right? I watched him maneuver into that direction, right? And so
Hmm.
what I had to get from that experience in a lot of ways, and I'm sure a lot of other Black men do, is that I'm kind of going based off of how I see him treat another family that's not my own, right? Because when
Mm,
I look
okay.
at my mom, she's figuring it out day by day. And
Yeah.
like in somewhere in the mix, he might be involved when he feels like it, right? And
Hmm.
I think a lot of times, even when we talk about statistics and even just the narrative of what Black fathers are and what they're supposed to be in the home, I think when you consider what a father wounded, it's a very nuanced subject, right?
Huh?
Hmm.
Because all things I've worked with men before, and they be like, everything in my life was fine. I had no problems, no issues, no this. My dad was there, maybe he wasn't there, but I still had a good life. And it's like, there's still something that a father provides, that a man in the home provides, that you just can't get from anywhere else, right? And then we
Mm-hmm.
find that a lot of black men, or just, men in general, are always caught into a catch-22 of I just have to figure it out. All of everything that I do is done by trial and error, which in and in itself could be, I mean, exceedingly traumatic, right? I know for myself, like I tell you all the time, my dad to this day still has no idea what I do for work. When I tell him I'm a therapist, he'd be like, "Oh, you talk to crazy people for a living?" If that's what you got from it, sure. And it's not because he doesn't care, it's just his mind doesn't relate or doesn't understand that, right? And so because of
Mm-hmm.
near and dear, I hold this to my heart, there's a part of me that he just doesn't get, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a part of him that I have to understand and realize that that's not a place where we can come together in, right? Proud of the success, just not fully aware of what I do. And so when we consider like father, when we consider what black men are supposed to be in the home, it's so much more than just what we see or what we experience, right? It's the connection part of it, it's the understanding part of it, it's the investment into it, right? And so I will always raise the question that, when we talk about numbers or when we talk about anything, and even as black people, our experience is as nuanced as it gets, right?
Mm-hmm.
I say this every week, but now we're four black men talking about feelings and emotions. That's not a regular occurrence of things that happen. And so I will always, like I said, I will always just throw out there that though we have the numbers, we have the statistics, there's still such a nuanced part of this that
Mm-hmm.
depending on who you're talking to, the experience
Mm-hmm.
so vastly different, and the wound there could be so big that it doesn't have enough words to even express. So that's my little part in it.
So
Mm-hmm.
I would jump in here, Kelvin. I just want to say thank you for sharing your story with us. So you did mention something that has to do with wound. The father's wound don't just disappear with age.
Hmm.
They often resurface in our adulthood. And most of the people we speak to as clinicians, that is what we experience with them. It also resurfaces or it appears again in our relationship. In most cases, it even affects our self-worth and even our careers. Like you said, you mentioned a point that up to date, your dad don't know what you do for a living. And I just want to commend your effort for being vulnerable, just not sharing this part with us. And again, I always say this: listen, my being in the army, I deploy as well. I've been a missionary to several African countries for years. I wasn't there when my son was born. Now, every time that I have an opportunity to speak to my son, my son would always ask me, he's 15, he would always ask me, but why were you not there when I was born?
Hmm.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that let's be real. That question touched whenever he would ask me the question. Listen, I've done all this, I've given all the necessary explanation I need to give, but I still feel every day that my son feels the hurt that I wasn't there when he was born. I wasn't there when my son tied his first tie. Someone help. I had to call someone, please, can you go over to my place and just help him knot his tie, or just dress him up for school.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And up to date, he's still talking about that. The truth is that many men today we see are walking around with unspoken grief. They're carrying anger or emptiness that they've never had a space to process. Now, so
Mm-hmm.
anytime, sometimes without realizing it, they even repeat the very pattern they hated. And that is why we see repetition, generational patterns. My dad was divorced. His dad was divorced. It trickles down to every generation. Does that make sense? My dad, I'm just giving an example. My dad's dad was not available. He was absent. He was absent. So it trickles down to each generation. So, but again, one thing I've always
it could. We
yeah.
don't, we don't want to say it does trickle down. we want to give that 5%
Mm-hmm.
that
Mhm.
it could trickle down to every
Yeah,
generation because nothing is finite.
Mm-hmm.
right.
I
So
agree with you.
and
I agree with you.
you're talking about intergenerational patterns, which
Hmm.
basically
Mhm.
is the way that you saw the father, Calvin was
Calvin. Yep.
um how he saw his father was raised with other people, it may
Mhm.
affect the way he raised his children. Now it could be
Yeah.
positive or negative. It may not be either. He may choose to pull from another pool of information
Yeah.
or guidance. So
Mhm.
even though his father was maybe absent for him, he could still be a great father and not fall in intergenerational patterns, so to
That
speak.
that was exactly my next point. So my next point was that being absent doesn't really define us. Recognizing the wound is the first step for breaking the circle. There were so many things I didn't learn from my father that I had learned through, like you said, through someone else that I admired, like a mentor. There were so many things I had to discover myself. So for the fact that your dad wasn't there doesn't define who you are.
Mm-hmm.
We can literally break out of that circle and start a new pattern for our generation and all that stuff. So I just wanted to put that out as we talk go into the second point.
So also let me add one thing to Calvin because I love your story, brother. Your
Mhm.
story was beautiful.
Yeah.
So I want to because I'm a glass half full kind of therapist.
Mm-hmm.
Optimistic. There we go.
Yeah, I wouldn't say your father doesn't know what you do because he says you work with crazy people. That's not a professional term we use. However, it is a term that uh, uh, some of the people in society can attribute to you being a therapist. So he's well aware of what you do.
Mm-hmm.
What we define is he doesn't communicate it well.
Mm-hmm.
So trust, dad knows what you do. He
Mm-hmm.
may be proud of what you do. I think his way of being able to communicate with you is probably something that may need work on.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to look at culture. You know, we're
Mhm.
talking about cultural aspects. We're talking about geographical aspects. So, Dr. Ekwe, and I apologize if I mispronounce your name. So, growing up at my age, and I'll be 55 next month, my father was in the home, but he worked 2 jobs, so we rarely saw him.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And we would see him in passing, and we
Mhm.
used to make a joke about it. When we wake up, we see dad. When we go to bed, we see dad. And nowhere else. He wasn't there to help with homework or nothing. However, in that culture in the 70s, in the 80s, every male figure that was in the neighborhood home, they were doing the same thing. So
Mhm.
that was the norm. And all my friends that I knew, they went off to college or they went off to the military. They did well because that was the norm. So I think sometimes when you don't see if the father's in the home, he has to have a presence in
Mm-hmm.
the home. We're talking about absenteeism. Every all of these topics are great, but we have to define: are you mentally absentee? Are you physically absentee? Are you emotionally absent? A
Mhm.
father could be in a home and be emotional. I,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see my father smile or laugh and probably until I was 30.
Mhm.
And I grew
Wow.
up in a house with the man every day.
Mhm.
He would say things of such high level functioning. I thought the man was illiterate. Like he would say things like, I eat so you can eat. And that was it. And I was like, that makes no sense.
What does that even mean?
I eat so
Right.
you can eat. However, as we get older, that nugget was like, oh, I'm eating or barely eating, so you can eat good
Mhm.
because I'm going to work. So we see fathers have that effect on us when they're there. So
Mm-hmm.
imagine those memories. If you remove my father from my memory, I would be psychologically probably unstable.
Mm-hmm.
I would be depressed. I would have anxiety. I would have emotional dysregulation. I would have probably some criminal background and history, you know, unless, somebody stepped in and mom married a guy who was willing to take on 6 kids,
Mhm.
himself, or the village raised me. We find this so often um, to happen, and it can be generational that we pass down to not only sons but to daughters, to nieces and nephews, to first cousins. We can do a whole thing, and it may be even a reason why we as a people um, still have a struggle with bonding and coming together, because there are, you know inherent things inside of us.
Mhm.
We're so full of gaps, not only
Mhm.
Mhm.
in our DNA but in our emotional DNA,
Mhm.
that we can't bond, we can't trust anybody. We don't know if you're going to be here tomorrow and you're going to be gone. um, we don't know how to nurture. Imagine women who don't know how to nurture,
Mm.
Mhm.
fathers who don't know how to give their son a hug or say I'm proud of you. You know,
Mm. Mhm.
but he's in the house, so that's a form of being absent. And I
Right.
agree with you, Calvin. The number is 52.4, but we don't know what they're providing.
Mhm.
We don't know if dad's in the house and he's chugging down a 40 ounce every day, and unfortunately, engaging in domestic abuse. Uh,
So
we don't.
I would like to throw out there too, just for practicality, right? One thing that I have been exposed to gratefully is a lot of great men who are active fathers in their home, right?
Mhm.
And when we talk about the intergenerational part, again, just speaking from experience, and again, just for a lot of other black men who may feel like this, who did not grow up with a father, one of the biggest questions that's asked all the time is, how do I be a man? Right? How do I love like a man? I grew up with my mom, my grandma, my aunt in the house, right? So I knew emotion in concept, right? I knew
Yep.
how to show it, right? But I'm still growing up with all women and ain't no man in the house. So like,
Mhm.
and it's like three different generations. So use your imagination, right? Um,
Yep. Yep.
but the older I got, right, and when we talk about the intergenerational part and even where culture comes in, so I'm from Las Vegas, right? So I'm from the complete other side of the country, right?
Mhm.
Mental health, conversations about emotions, that stuff, I know it's existing in a lot of places, but that is not a concept out there, right? And
Mhm.
so just considering what the history is and how black people even got out there, transparently, nobody wants to talk about the past. Everything out there is about what's going on right now and how we need to build and move forward, right? And so I've never met my father's father. I don't think he's ever met him, right? And so then when that comes to me, he doesn't talk about it, right? And then when
Mhm.
I look at myself, it's like anything that a man would relish in or take advantage of or work for, I was or have been very resistant against, right? I wanted it in concept, but it's like the question will remain, well, how do I do it? Right? For a
Mhm.
lot of men, it's like who grown up or seen it, it's like I just know this is what to do, right?
They got a blueprint.
There's a blueprint. But for me, again, I always go back to trial and error because I've had to develop this sense of individualistic tendencies, right? Where I'm like,
Mhm.
girl, you ain't gonna get me. I will find I will find a way to do what I gotta do. You is not gonna
Mhm.
get me. I'm not gonna
Mhm.
be hemmed up because now with my like that's I don't mean to go on a rant, but that's why messaging is so important when we're talking to black men who did not grow up with a father, because now look at what your messaging is: music, movies, entertainment, pop culture, random
Mhm.
people that you might see on the corner. Because now
Now this.
that's what I got ingrained into me from people that don't even know me. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so
Right.
I've been able to experience all different types of manhood and all different types of life, right? And I'm just recently getting to the point now where I'm like, okay, I think I know what I'm doing. I'm comfortable with the fact that I'm aware of my emotions. I'm comfortable with the fact that I know how to express my emotions. Shoot, I just got comfortable crying like 2 months ago. Real talk.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so there's I will be lying to you if I told you that my father wound is still not there. But what I'm learning is, and one thing that my dad told me that I'll never forget, and this is what made me heal a little bit, he's still a person. When my dad had me, he was 19 years old. And
Mhm,
I asked him, I said, why weren't you there? He was like, dude, I was 19. I didn't know what I was doing. And
mhm.
when I asked him, I was like 20. And I'm like, well, shoot, what if I had a kid? Do I know what I'll be doing? Probably
Yeah, yeah.
not.
It was a human
Yeah.
moment. Yeah.
Probably
Uh-huh.
not. And so
Yeah.
from that point, it made me realize that, like, could he have done better? Sure. Could a lot of fathers who are absent do better? Of course. There's a bigger psychological factor that comes into play that unfortunately, when they're not there, they cannot help remedy within the person that is feeling the hurt.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it is even my responsibility to learn that though it is there, I don't have to allow my actions to play off something that's happened a long time ago.
So
You know?
what you did, even though you don't want TV and the environment to raise you and teach you how to be a man, you use those things and those you use them as tools to survive.
Hmm.
And so anything that we view as negative can be turned into positive if the
Hmm.
means is for the betterment of the person.
Hmm.
So I always use a term saying give to promote growth.
Hmm.
So, if you give somebody something, make sure it's going to help them grow. Make sure it's going to benefit them. You found a way, Calvin, in your journeys to do your own self-healing. You found a
Mhm.
way to meet your unmet needs. And
Yep.
and and although you still have a what you call an emotional hole or maybe even a psychological hole where where your father was not there, I guarantee you it's not as big as it was when you were 20 or
Absolutely.
when you were 25. The
Mhm.
hole gradually closes because not that you're feeling it with anything because you don't need to, it's because you're feeling it with self-awareness.
Hmm.
Psychologically, you becoming more self-aware. So you don't have to put building blocks emotionally. You're saying, okay, this is what it is, this is what it was. It's not going to determine who I am, and it's not going to play a part of what kind of father I become. However, I'm going to remember that to use it as a outline for what not to do.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And that's how I'm going to progress. I also think, and I see you, Doc. You ready to jump in? So I'm gonna
Yeah.
tag you in.
I just
Oh,
want
I'm
to.
gonna jump in before he does,
Okay,
though.
yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna
So
jump in before he does.
one thing, real quick. I think the biggest thing, um, for black men, and I'm just gonna
Mhm.
preference only black men. I'm gonna leave the black woman out of it. Is that
Mhm.
we are our own worst enemies when
Hmm.
it comes to um perpetuating stereotypes.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
I say that because we'll have knowledge of how I raised my son, and I know Calvin is struggling, or Ricky is struggling, or Doc is struggling, and I'll keep the knowledge to myself. And I'm around you every day. We don't share it. We stay
Mhm.
silent.
Hmm.
Even when we have our own issues and struggling in the home, we don't reach out. We don't seek help. We don't seek knowledge and information from someone who may have it. I've sat here with you three, and I've learned a lot. And I've been in the game 20 years, and I was like, man, these brothers strong in the knowledge. As they say, the force is strong with you. And I was like, man. Um, but unless this podcast is streamed nationwide, or we tell people that there are black men having conversations about, hey, let's try to erase uh absenteeism in the home with black fathers. Let's talk about it. If you are the guy and you embarrassed because you didn't raise the father, hey, you know what? It's still not too late to have a conversation about it. And
Hmm.
maybe you can teach us why you weren't there. Like you said, your dad said, well, man, I didn't know what I was doing. I was 19. I appreciate that. So maybe we can have more conversations and with this, and we keep furthering the culture and the information, because there's other people out here looking for the knowledge that you gentlemen possess. So I applaud you guys for that.
Thank you.
Go
Thank
ahead,
you.
go ahead, Rick. I'm tagging you in.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Boom. Thank you. I'll take that. I'll take that.
yeah.
So,
Rookie, Rick, before you go in,
go ahead.
I
Go
just,
ahead.
I
Oh,
just
there
don't
we
want to
go.
forget.
Just
Go
couldn't
ahead.
help,
Go ahead.
couldn't even
Yeah.
help himself.
So one of the things, like I said previously, is that for the fact that your dad or my dad was there, but I also have friends that their dads were not present, not because they didn't want to be present, but there were circumstances or situations that prevented them from not being there. Like Doc said, we need to define what we're talking about when we refer to it as activism. Number two, one of the things that we decided that we're going to do through this podcast is that we are creating awareness. Now, for the fact it happened doesn't mean it should continue to happen. Does that make sense? And now, Kelvin, one of the things that you did, I'm very proud of you. Thank you for sharing. Now, recognizing the wound, like I said, becomes the first step to breaking that circle. And now, what you went through, when you start having children, you wouldn't want your own son, being a black man, to go through what you went through. Does that make sense? The experience that you've got through this process has made you a better person, has made you a stronger person, also made you a refined person. Does that make sense? So I just want to say God would not allow us go through stuff in life if He has no plan for us. The Bible says, if we bring the scripture, there's a scripture that says, "For all things works together for good."
Mhm.
Not some things. All things works together for good. And at the end of the day, God has made you to be who you are, and you are proud of you. Keep moving, brother. You are a man. God created you for a reason. He created you with a purpose, and He created you to achieve something on earth. Go explore. You come back with result. So I want to say to you, I'm proud of you, brother. I'm
Appreciate
proud
that.
of you. You're doing great things. Over to you, Rick.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. I've been waiting. I've been waiting. No, but no, I appreciate the conversation. We've had a lot of beautiful moments. We've been talking about models, influences, finding, the learning opportunities through all these different situations. And it just made me think about like my life. I'm just gonna share, my tidbit of a story. Um, Dad was around. He was in the military for the first part of my life. Whereas my mom had my sister before she had me. She's on the autism spectrum. Both my parents met in the military. My dad stayed in the military. My mom got out of the military to take care of my sister on the spectrum. Um, and I do remember, dad being there physically, but at one point, he and my mom separated. Dad still remained a big part of my life. He visited pretty much every weekend. He gave the money. He gave that type of support. But I also remember, like, even at an early age, and I'm talking about like even before my teenage years, I wanted to work for a couple of reasons. And I think, as I'm looking back on it now, like I wanted to like fulfill the role of being the active father in the house that my dad wasn't. Again, he visited every weekend, but Monday through Friday, like I wanted to help take care of my sister, my older sister, but I also wanted to work to make my mom's life easier because she was one of those parents who worked multiple jobs and I could see like the struggle and stuff. So like as I like look back on my life then and like where I am now, I think that played a big role into developing the work ethic that I have now. So when we talk about like healing and learning and just being okay with the situation you're in and like finding, the silver lining or like even the gold lining. Like for me, like it was, developing that work ethic, developing that sense of patience towards my older sister who was in the autism spectrum and all the struggles that she endured and me helping to take care of her, but also like just developing like that empathy in itself. I think, as black men, even at a young age, like we have these things that we're trying to accomplish, these things that we're trying to fulfill. And that was it for me. And I think, now as I'm looking at my life, now that I'm 35, just turned 35 a couple weeks ago. Like I'm still like working on my manhood and what I feel like manhood means to me.
I would like to put this in there then, because when we're talking about fatherhood, when we're talking about just black men being in the home and, all of these topics that we're covering, like, it's important that we identify the cycles because every one of us to a degree, right,
Hmm.
have expressed the same thing. It's just in a completely different light. Or not even
Yep.
a different light. Honestly, it's just like a different filtering,
Hmm.
to be very honest.
Yep. Yep.
So even as you were talking, Ricky, and Dr. Rawls and Dr. Akwe, like when we consider what father wounds are, when we consider like the cycles that are birthed from them, right? Or even the characteristics that are birthed from father wounds, I think a lot of times the narrative is that it's always negative, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
That I like I'm not gonna lie, like my parents polar opposites. Like my daddy was doing street stuff. My mama grew up in a military house, nowhere near the same type of person, right? And so there's often times where like I notice characteristics in myself, and I'm like, look, I'm just like Calvin Anderson. I already know I am. My mind is built on finesse. I'm gonna make it happen and
Right.
stuff like that, right? And so
Uh-huh.
my work ethic came up because it's like I don't ever want to go without, right?
Yep.
A
Yep.
lot of times when people look at father wounds or when they consider it, it's like your father wound is there because you didn't get this, you didn't get this. And we're like, well, I also learned how to do certain things too. I
Mhm.
There we
learned
go.
the importance of
Hmm.
being responsible. I learned that accountability is all I got.
Yep.
Like if I did it, I can't turn and go look at somebody else, right? And so
Hmm.
I think when we consider that certain characteristics or certain things that are developed or coming out of these experiences that they're not always bad, but like you said, Ricky, it's all about how they're cultivated, right?
Yeah.
It's all about how these
Exactly.
things like I mean, for you, Dr. Ross, it's like you grew up in a house where it's like you saw your father in the morning, you saw him in the evening. You have no idea what happened in the middle, but it's like you was gonna see him when you got
Hmm.
and you was gonna see
Yep.
him before you got to bed. And it's like, well, I mean, just kind of spitballing. It's like, well, I see that's what consistency looks like.
Right.
How do I build and develop that consistency for myself? I mean, shoot, dude, you went to the military. It ain't any more consistent in the military. You know what's going,
Hmm.
what you gonna do. And so I think a lot of times when we're even considering what breaking down the when we're talking about breaking down the intergenerational traumas or that aspect of it, I think a lot of times the narrative can change to what benefits or what positives do come out of those father wounds, but emphasize the importance of how they need to be cultivated. That way, it becomes more beneficial to the individual.
So you can't cultivate anything, Cal, and people, we as a people, and that's any person, because
Hmm.
your brain is not functioning like that. So
Hmm.
of course we know the frontal lobe, which is designed for your PRI, your processing reasoning index, but what you see, what you taste, and et cetera, et cetera. So you found a way to self-regulate your emotions by taking the absenteeism of your father and making it a positive.
Hmm.
Everybody can't do that.
Hmm.
So I present exhibit A. This is the brain. Actually, this is the brain, right? So this is the
Hmm.
brain when you got both hemispheres and you got all your synaptic neuron. And I'm using jargon, which I said I wasn't, but I gotta throw it in there. So this is
Gotta make the people understand.
right. This is what your brain will look like. Imagine this being your brain. This is a healthy functioning brain
Hmm.
when everything is going good in your life, or sometimes bad. This is your brain when it looks like when you result to the Neanderthal part of your brain,
Pop
Hmm.
that lid. Hmm. Yep.
and there's nothing going on inside of nothing. But this is the default part of your brain
Hmm.
when you restore to factory settings, and you ain't got nothing inputted. So now all you're using is anger, sadness, profanity, uh, uh,
Hmm.
over happiness because you're trying to be overly happy for something you don't have, and all the negative things. It's like anger's driving the car, but all his cousins is inside.
Mhm.
Anxiety, depression, fear, all that's here. So we work. I say that to say, some of us have the ability to self-regulate. Some of us
Mhm.
don't, and
Mhm.
we shouldn't be afraid to look at something that says, just because I don't have this or
Mhm.
have them, don't mean I'm going to end up like this. I'm going to create my own path.
Mhm.
I'm going to determine, as me and Doc A was talking about, we're going to define what fatherhood is to me. Because at the end of the day, my father was a really really good man, and I big up my father all the time, and my mother who was a school teacher. Uh, but I big up him because he was there, but it's what he taught me by just doing. It wasn't a whole bunch of talk because he's not a big talker. It was just
Mhm.
what he did, but he wasn't afraid to pass me off and says, "Go ask your Uncle David."
Mm.
And I was like, "But that's your brother, but don't go ask David." And he
Mhm.
wasn't afraid to share the wealth. And then he said, "What did David tell you?" So he could correct it. So you can determine what it looks like for anybody. Anybody could. I could have went with what my father did. I could have went with what my uncle did. If you and I was friends, I could have said, "Calvin, let's determine how we're gonna be fathers when we grow up."
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I ain't gonna, cause in the streets we used to say, when I grow up, I ain't gonna never beat my kids like I be getting beat. I ain't gonna never, I ain't whooping no kids, man. That's a raw deal. And
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
gonna make sure every Thursday they can have pizza. It's gonna be pizza night every Thursday.
Mhm.
And I'll make sure my kids love me. I'm gonna be the fun father. But
Mm.
reality, when you get older, you-
Watch yourself. Watch yourself.
things have to change, and you have to redefine that role.
So
Mhm. Yeah.
if I can just put this in there, then just based off what you're saying and kind of what I'm interpreting from this, right? Because even while you was talking, and you talk about the brain and what it means to flip that lid, and like there's it's like I kept on hearing that there still has to be people around for that person, you know?
Mhm.
Even though like I found positive in it, like because of the people that I still had around. Like my mom was primary suspect number one. She told me straight up, like, I ain't no man, I can't teach you how to be that. What I can do is teach you how to be a good person, how to be, all of those different characteristics, but there's still something, excuse me, still something to say when like I was still blessed in the matter because of who she is, right?
Right.
But a
Yeah.
lot of times we got a lot of brothers out here that's left to the streets, left to their own vices, left to their own
Mhm.
things. And so I definitely want to give credit to the fact that just because I was able to find an outlet or resource those emotions into something positive, there's a way vaster majority of brothers that are always who has their lid flipped, if you will, and having a result to those more survivalistic tendencies.
So here's why you were able to do that. And because first of all, in the early part of your life, in the I won't even say the fallacy stage, but I will say you had a foundation.
Mhm.
So somebody planted a seed in you, and you had a strong foundational support. And as you grew up, the foundation wasn't shaky. See, a lot of the brothers that's in the street, they didn't even get a foundation from birth. Some people were left to be
Mhm.
adopted. Some people were raised by their grandmother while their mother was still under the influence of substances. Someone incarcerated, so they never had a good foundation. They had one, but it was shaky or
Mhm.
or unstable, what so to speak. But you had a good one. So even when mom wasn't around, and I guarantee you this without even knowing you 100%,
Mm-hmm.
when you were somewhere and temptation arose,
Mm-hmm.
even if you felt like getting involved, you was like, man, if I get involved in this, man, I'm probably gonna get smashed when I get home.
Oh yeah, you already know.
Oh man.
Yeah. So having that mental fortitude
Mhm.
is what we call the rudimentary is the foundational aspect of who you are. It is a characteristic building block
Yeah.
that's been imprinted in you and designed in your emotional DNA to say that I'm still scared to get involved in foolishness
Mm-hmm.
because I know stuff gonna happen back home. So as long as that foundation is strong, you can build off that as you get older, as you get more experiences, as more things come internally and externally into your range of view. You can determine I'm gonna keep this, I'm gonna throw this out, I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
keep this, I'm gonna throw this out. I know I shouldn't have this, but I'm gonna keep it anyway, just in case if I had to, fight or flight. I'm gonna keep the
Yeah.
fight. You know,
Yeah.
and you determine, and that makes you who you are. And as you get older, and then you get a willing partner, then you may start to um, kind of carve out what kind of father you will be, and say, you know what, dad wasn't there, but I'm gonna make sure that I pull this in. So your foundation was good, man, and you were good for it.
Yeah.
So
And as you were talking, I'm gonna jump in this time, Dr. Oscar. But anyways, as 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 you were talking, I was thinking about like my foundation because like that makes like a lot of sense. My mom, I love my mom. Like she was the model for me. Of course, I picked up a lot of things from my dad, but like to this day, like I tell people all the time, like my mom has been like the biggest influence in my life because she was the one that was always there. Again, love my dad. We spent time together. I learned things from him, but my mom, like she's in my heart. But she had me in church every Sunday. Like my mom had me writing and reading poetry in church when I was 8 years old.
Oh
So
wow.
like, yeah, so I became a deacon by the time I was like 20. You too, Calvin?
Bro, what my mama made me, I could not leave the house without a notebook to write notes at church.
Hey,
Yeah,
hey,
because I need to know you paying attention.
yep, yep. But like, I mean, we had that foundation, and like I think like even when I was growing up and I heard some of the things that my friends were getting into, I'm like, you did what? In my mind, I'm like, no, like that's a no-no. Like, don't my mom would kill me if I even thought about doing something like that.
Exactly.
So, just to reiterate what you said, Dr. Rawls, like that makes a lot of sense because I experienced it and I'm wondering, how can we, help instill like that type of foundation or like a solid foundation for that matter, into the men that are like raising like these kids. What do you think?
So unfortunately, and the issue is, however long that the person's been alive and engaging in a certain behavior,
Mm,
psychologically, it takes that number of years to root
Mhm.
out that behavior and
Yeah.
put another
yep,
behavior. So if you
yep.
find a man who's in his 40s and 50s and he's been doing
Mm,
absentee father or negative behavior, it'll take another 40 50 years to root that
yeah,
out of training and therapy,
yeah.
and CBT and EMDR and all these
Mm-hmm.
clinical techniques and tools to get him on the right path. And unfortunately, we don't have that. So what we do, I mean, we don't throw those people to the side as psychotherapists. What we do
Right,
is
right.
we bring them in and we give them as many tools to help, straighten the ship. But what we do focus on a lot more is the children.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's how we start to break the curse. We
so
don't get rid of the parents, and we acknowledge them, of course, but we
Mm-hmm.
we we turn our head and be like, our kids, we would like to see them, and we start to input techniques into them because
Mm,
as fathers, we look at, when I go to work, I stopped working for myself a long time ago. Once I started having kids, I became an employee of my children.
okay.
I work for them.
Not there yet, but I got you.
Yeah, I work to make sure that they have to. So even though A company signs my check. When the children say, I need this, and if it's within my means and if it's appropriate, they get paid. So
Mhm.
and that's the goal. So we have to start to understand that we work for the children.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
in
go ahead,
addition
Doc.
to what you just said, Doc, one thing that I still believe that is lacking in in this generation is community. We
Oh
were
yeah,
raised in community where
absolutely,
even if
absolutely.
my dad was in the rap, we had other men that would stand to do what a dad needs to do.
The
So
village.
that is why we came together. Yeah, that is why we came together to to start this podcast, because again we want to create a community where we would not just educate our people, but we'll be there to we will stand, we'll be there to support them and also to be a role model to them and all that stuff. Again, and that is also one way we can stop that. We can break that circle of as absenteeism and whatever we call it. So we build community.
Yeah.
And again,
And Dr. A, I'm sorry
in
not to
order
cut
for
you
this,
off.
go on.
What I want us to do as black men as well,
Mhm.
and I'll let this be my last talking point because I know it's after 8. We need not to be afraid to have these conversations in an open forum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's stop being afraid as black men to stop having these conversations in open forum. Podcast is great. I love
Yeah.
it. I hope you guys. I hope I didn't do such a bad job that you guys invite me back.
Oh, we're gonna invite you back.
In the future.
We're gonna invite you
However,
back. Hmm.
when we're out with our friends or we're having dinner with our significant others and friends, let's get this conversation going. So you know why? Because that's the biggest tool. That's the biggest weapon we got. Information.
Hmm.
We start providing
Yes.
information, and the information can is relatable,
Hmm.
it's factual, and it can be reached. People will take it. A wise person told me during my army years. It says, "Be brilliant, be brief, and be gone."
Mm.
Bluff. That's
Hmm.
bluff.
Mic
Bottom
drop
line.
right there. Hmm.
All right, that's all I got.
All right.
Oh no,
Yes.
stick around, stick around. 'Cause I'm gonna pick. I'm sure we're gonna invite you back. I mean, I don't know about Dr. Aquay and Calvin, but like yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed your presence here tonight, sir. I
I
really
appreciate it.
appreciate
Thank
you
you.
being here.
I appreciate you.
Hmm. So I just as we come to a close for this session, a couple of things came out of this conversation. We had a lot of beautiful moments. We reflected on our personal experiences, but we also thought about the people that we come into contact as well. I know our producer, Dr. Bowman, CEO of Vision, Hope, and Healing Therapy, located out here in Manassas, Virginia, where we have all had the pleasure of like convening. I just want us to like, have a thought. What what should fathers know when raising a young black man? And another thought is, what should those grieving the absent father do to cope and heal? As I reflect on like those questions, I think you summarized it really, really well, Dr. Rawls. Communication, having a forum, getting together and just sharing the wealth of information that comes from the natural experience of just living. I mean, this evening, for example, I had no idea that Calvin and I were raised like, pretty similarly. Coming from similar backgrounds. Of course, we have variations because none of us ever have like the same shoes
Mm-hmm.
that we're walking in, but there are similarities that are in my story that I can relate to with Calvin's story. And I think as young black men, middle-aged black men, older black men, I'm not throwing any shade to anybody, but like we all have things that we can like learn from each other. I mean, Dr. Rawls, you said you've been in the game for decades and like you're learning things from like us young people.
Oh
And
man, I love
Decade
if
is
you can't
crazy.
learn
yeah,
anything
I
from
know, I know.
right, if you can't learn anything per day from
Mm-hmm.
any person or situation, then you have ceased to exist.
Mm.
Yes, Mm,
and that's facts.
Now,
The brain never stops learning and
mm,
never stops growing. That
yeah,
mm-hmm,
gray matter stays gray because you're inputting data into it
mm-hmm,
for it to process. So you should be learning. I shouldn't come on the show and be like, I'm the sharpest knife in the toolbox, son. You know, I
mm.
I, I know everything. Nah, I,
Can't touch you.
that's stupid. They're like
Right, right.
I came in with an open mind and a willing heart to say,
Mm-hmm.
I want these brothers to feed me.
Hey,
So,
and that's having that teachable spirit. I mean, as black men, as men in general, as a society, we
right.
have to learn how to adapt. We have to learn how to take in information and make some like really good judgment calls based off of that information. But most importantly, like I said, we have to adapt and we have to communicate with with the people that are around us and learn how to navigate situations as effectively as possible for those people that are like grieving like the absent father, whether he's absent emotionally or whether he's absent like physically, um again, we have to like reach out to those people and they have to be willing to reach out to us as well so we can all learn from each other. I think one of the biggest things that we talked about this evening that really touched home to me was just relating to each other. Let me hear what you have to say and let me share my experience with you. When we all come together and just share whatever we have at that table, then we can all benefit from it.
I agree.
I can go. So I think to answer the two questions that you asked, Ricky, so for the first part, it's like, well, what can we tell fathers? I think in short, I would say um, to be mindful of your inner child,
Yeah.
to understand that
I
you
like that.
don't see what you want to see in your children until you see what you want to see in yourself.
Mm.
Oh man.
You have to be able
Oh
to just take the time and understand that your inner child is still there. And if you do, and if you have that father wound, what has been birthed from that part, right?
man.
And
Mm-hmm.
those that are grieving, I would say, to be honest with you, like the world is yours. I've even with me not growing up with my dad, I always had the feeling of like I want to be just like my dad. I remember my mom said one time like, "Dude, you want to be a construction worker? I mean, that's what you want to do. Go for it." But I was like, "Well, dang, when you say it like that, I don't know if that's what I want to do for it." And then the older I got, I started realizing that that empty space there is honestly, it's not because it's voided, it's filled with endless opportunity for whatever I want to be. I don't have to be like him or like this or any variation. I can literally just be who I want to be. And so for those that are grieving or coping or whatever space that they're in, I would say that your opportunities are endless as long as you're willing to take them as they come.
Yes. Yes.
let me come in here. I just wrote something down here that I want to read. Say healing begins when we acknowledge those unmet needs and start to nurture that younger version of ourselves. Listen, it's not too late to start.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
first thing is not, it's never too late to start. We have the tools, we have the knowledge, we have the community. You and I are here to support one another. Now, I always believe that if we network very well, we'll make the world a better place. All we need is just one person to be changed. If we can change one person's mindset, that one person goes to the next person, I will tell you, we will affect a lot of people. Don't
Mm-hmm.
stop loving yourself. Don't stop
Mm.
healing. It's a continuous process.
Hmm.
See you next time. God bless you.
All right. All right. Oof. Man, this was a good one, guys. How's everybody feeling?
I'm good, man.
Oh man. I'm looking forward to the next one. Like I said earlier, Dr. Rawls, it was a pleasure. Like we will definitely invite you back. You dropped so many gems. I just feel like I got so much richer this evening.
Same here.
All right. Well, to our audience, we thank you for joining us again on this evening. We hope to see you again real soon. If you haven't watched our previous episodes, go back, check those out. and stay tuned for the next one. Until then, peace be with you. Live the life and do all the things. Bye, guys.
See you.
See.
Mm.